Our next speaker is Steve Turner. Steve is a lifelong socialist and trade unionist. He joined what was the old T&G as a fresh-faced clippy on the London buses at age 19. And from the early days as a local shop steward, Steve has championed workers' rights and improved pay and conditions, and has consistently rowed against discrimination in the workplace wherever it exists in society as a whole. As one of Unite's assistant general secretaries, he is responsible for the union's manufacturing sector, retired members, and Unite's community membership. Unite is the largest organised union within the Sizewell site. Steve has announced that he'll be contesting the General Secretary's election when that comes about, and quoting from his campaign page, Steve has the vision necessary to safeguard jobs, protect wages, and support communities as we transition our economy to meet the demands of climate change. Over to you, Steve, and thank you.
Right, thanks very much for that, Mark, and to all the previous speakers as well. I think it's been a fantastic discussion so far, so I look forward to the debate. Everyone brings their own perspective on these things, and I welcome the opportunity. 9 months ago, I would never have heard of Zoom. Now you can't get off it, and tonight we've got 300 people in on a debate that's taking place actually across our nations, but in reality in the east of England. So I think it's a fantastic initiative. Well done, Mark, and everybody else that's behind the organisation of this. Now, I come at this as a trade unionist and as a leader of our union, Unite. And of course, many of our members are at the forefront of the struggle that's going on at the moment to recover and rebuild and put the green new economy at centre stage in that discussion about a new politics and a new economy. And therefore, we're at a bit of a crossroads, really. And it's not just COVID. For all the challenges that COVID has presented us with, and of course for over 100,000 people, it's costing their lives. For many others, it's created huge challenges if they're home or whether indeed they're continuing to work throughout the pandemic. Many of our members have continued to work throughout the pandemic. Whether it's about building those new trading relationships outside of the single market in the European Union, or indeed whether it's the climate emergency. And the climate emergency has not been at the forefront of the agenda, given the immediacy of the challenges of COVID, but it very much has not gone away. And I see that whole recovery and rebuild program, that generation of new jobs and a guaranteed job for all, a good job, a well-paid job, a secure job, a skilled job, a trade unionised job, being at the forefront of a program that really does truly build back better, not from a soundbite point of view, as the Tories would have you believe, and the rhetoric of Johnson, of course, but from a very practical point of view. I see that the crossroads that we're sitting in at the moment does give us the opportunity to really grasp the mantle when it comes to transitioning our economy, repurposing our heavy industries and making sure that we not just save our planet and therefore give my kids and our grandchildren the opportunity to live in a world that I've enjoyed living in, of course, but to make sure that it's a safe place for communities and those generations to follow. So look, as we transition from fossil fuels to that green, clean economy, and we start to think about how we're going to clean our air, how we're going to clean our towns, our cities, our seas, and our skies, you know, I've already said that our members are at the forefront of it, and they are. Unite will be central to this debate. We already are. And as it continues, it will be our membership in steel. I mean, it's our members that manufacture the steel that assist us in constructing the sort of infrastructure projects that puts us at centre stage when it comes to recovering our economy. Our members are sitting there manufacturing the automotives, the vehicles that allow us freedom to be able to travel around our nations and indeed overseas as and when we choose to. But that transition from combustion engines to EVs and fuel cells driven by hydrogen, of course, is going to be centre stage in the discussion in that sector about how we carry working people and our communities with us. It's our members that operate the oil and gas platforms in the North Sea. And when we talk about the ending of gas into, or at least natural gas, into our homes, and we try to transition our industries away from a heavy reliance on natural gas, we get the obvious questions from our members that are in good jobs, well-paid jobs, skilled jobs, secured jobs, unionised jobs, paying their dues to our union. Well, what about me and what about my community? And they're absolutely legitimate questions for them to ask on this journey. And we need to take people on this journey, whether it's our members that fly around the world working in the aviation sector, or our 70,000 at Heathrow alone. That look after the airport infrastructure itself, from cleaners, security guards, caterers, maintenance workers, firefighters, all of those that are employed in the aviation industry in airports across our nations, of course. Whether we're manufacturing the parts or of those aircrafts in our aerospace sector. These are, again, good, well-paid, decent, unionised, skilled jobs that provide opportunities for my kids and my kids' kids and generations to come to enter into apprenticeships that give them hope and opportunity of a secure, well-paid job into the future. And last but by no means least, of course, it's our members that are working in the energy sector, generating the energy that we require to enable us to live the lives that we enjoy living, including, of course, at Sizewell B and at Hinkley Point. And our members will be there, not just constructing Sizewell C, but they'll be there operating Sizewell C as a power plant once it's up and running and generating electricity. So it's our union, it's our members, it's our communities that are going to be at the forefront of this discussion. And I agree with some of what other colleagues have said, of course, but I disagree with others. I do see demand for electricity growing. I don't see that continuing to decline as we transition away from heavy industry use on fossil fuels, particularly natural gas. I see electricity and hydrogen being at the forefront of supporting that transition. As we remove natural gas from our homes, and we're already talking about that 20% mix with hydrogen that Martin alluded to in his presentation, well, that's already running down our pipes in pilot programs right now. But that will mean that there's going to be a greater reliance on electricity in our homes to heat our homes and to cook on our utilities and to power our utilities, of course. And when it comes to heavy industries, from the steel industry to the automotive industry, right through to printing and packaging and food manufacturing, it's going to mean that there's a transition away again from fossil fuels to hydrogen, to arc furnaces, burning electricity effectively. Being at the core of that. So how do we generate that electricity? And that's the challenge for us. How do we do that, taking our communities with us? How do we do that in a cost-effective way? The market will not deliver this, and therefore we have to look to the state to support that just transition, a workers' transition that puts communities and working people at the forefront of the discussion. I'm not anti-nuclear. I don't sit in that camp that other people on the panel do. I'm not anti-nuclear. I do see nuclear energy as being a central plank of a balanced energy policy. I don't believe that we're going to be able to generate the sort of levels of electricity we're going to require in the near future, let alone the longer future, simply relying on solar and wind and hydro and the use of hydrogen. As much as I want to see investment in all of those areas of energy generation. So it's our members at Rolls-Royce that are manufacturing right now, designing, engineering, producing the small modular reactors. A modular reactor that's sized up effectively from the nuclear engines that drive our nuclear submarines. You're right, Martin, absolutely. But that technology is now sitting in the size of a football pitch, generating enough electricity for a town or city the size of Leeds. Over 200,000 homes can have enough power generated from a small modular reactor to enable that to be an effective use of power and generator of power. The side product from that, of course, is hot water. And if you have that in an integrated program, then you can generate enough hot water to be able to heat that town at the same time. Wind technologies. We've got the largest wind farms in Europe off the coast of the East Coast, actually, whether that's in the Humber or that's the East Coast off of Scotland, and indeed the Northwest off the coast of Merseyside in the Irish Sea. Yet not a single wind turbine has been manufactured here in the UK. It's a travesty to think that there's been an energy revolution in Scotland and yet not a single job has been generated there outside of routine maintenance work on those turbines to actually manufacture them. There's no legacy work being created there, and there's no legacy work being created elsewhere around the UK in order to do that. We're doing a lot of work at the moment domestic and commercial generation of energy? How do we use solar energy, and how do we use wind energy? And how do we store that so that it moves from use it or lose it to a position whereby we can store that energy that's generated during the course of the day to use it when we actually arrive back from work and we want to put our TV on, cook a meal, switch the lights on, do whatever it is that we want to do. And if we're going to make sure that we're doing that by retrofitting our homes and putting new building regulations in play for new homes with heat pumps, the heat pumps that Martin spoke about, the 600,000 a year, more than that, we would estimate if you put into new build as well as a retrofit program. I want to see those heat pumps, and I want to see them battery storage capacity manufactured here in the UK. I want to see legacy jobs from that retrofit program that does make our homes cleaner homes, more energy efficient homes, greener homes. I do want to see that. I want to see people's energy bills reduced. I want to see less energy used in the home. But equally, I'm not a Luddite. I like watching my TV. I want to go on holiday. I like driving my car. I like doing those things. And I think a lot of people in society do want to do those things and continue to do those things. We need to generate the power to enable us to do those things in a cleaner, greener fashion. And we need to use the opportunity to create those thousands of jobs, millions of jobs actually, that can be created as a consequence of having a green agenda. I'm not afraid of the Green New Deal. I'm a champion of the Green New Deal, but I approach it from perhaps a different perspective. Hydrogen, we've got some really good initiatives kicking off at the moment around carbon capture. That whole Humberside region that's got Scunthorpe Steelworks in it, that's already being designated as the first net zero carbon geographical region in our nation. There's a new power plant going to be constructed there. That will take carbon from the Scunthorpe Steelworks. It will store safely under the North Sea what it can't use, and it will take from that carbon the hydrogen to pump back into the Scunthorpe Steelworks to recycle it to power the furnaces that will continue to manufacture steel in a net zero carbon emitting fashion. So there's lots of work going on hydrogen at the moment and about how we manufacture hydrogen in a green way, because it's not necessarily cost effective or in fact green to manufacture or generate hydrogen right now, to capture hydrogen. But we're working on the technologies that enable that to happen. We've got a high energy cable coming under the North Sea now from Norway, where all of their, or 98% of their energy is generated using hydro power. There's a high energy cable coming under the North Sea, and it's going to come up in Blythe Valley, in the docks in Blythe, and that's going to be integrated into our national grid. We've got opportunities to use, we're an island. We've got opportunities now to generate electricity using hydro. It's quite disgraceful that the UK government abandoned plans for the Swansea Bay tidal lagoon. Not only would that have generated thousands of jobs in the Swansea Bay area, of course, which is an area of the Welsh nation that's desperate for good, well-paid, secure jobs in construction and indeed the operating of that, but the 19 turbines would have been manufactured in the West Midlands by GE in a plant in Rugby, and we would have been generating electricity directly from the sea in relation to Swansea Bay. We've got in the Bristol Channel the second highest tidal reach on this planet. Don't tell me we can't generate electricity from that using the technologies that already exist and using our fantastic world-class designers and engineers to be able to capture that power. We can do it off the islands of Scotland. We can do it off Anglesey. We can do it off the North Sea. We can generate the power that we need in order to transition our economy. Now, if at the end of the day, in years to come, that takes nuclear out of the equation, then so be it. But right now, I don't think we're in a place to be able to do that. We're working very hard on synthetic fuels. We've got a Jet Zero Council that this union participates in. We can already fly a jet using biomass, not using fossil fuels in jet fuel. We can do that, but we're not manufacturing biomass fuel at the moment. And there's a plan for 9 biomass generators to be manufactured across our nations to make sure that we are producing the biomass that we need. That can help us to transition our automotive sector at the same time. That point on the journey that takes us through from fossil fuels right now, through biomass, through hybrid, into full power electric vehicles, whether that's batteries, or whether that indeed is hydrogen and fuel cells. Hydrogen will play a key part in public transport.
We've got buses right now running on hydrogen. We've got a hydrogen train that's on trial in Austria right now. It's plans to put that for East Anglia, actually. There's going to be a trial of a hydrogen train in East Anglia. The technology is there. The design is there, the engineering skill is there, the demand for new jobs is there. We can create over 1.2 million new jobs just by doing a program of retrofit and making sure that, you know, the transition benefits all of our communities. We want to benefit, you know, our communities with advanced public services. If COVID's thrown anything up, it's shown up the need for, you know, more resources to be put into public services to look after the health of our nation and care for some of the most vulnerable in our nations. Those are green jobs as well. So getting hold of our new economy with a new politics, with an emphasis on caring for our communities and putting our communities centre stage in a new industrial revolution is key to this discussion. So I want to see our homes retrofitted. I want to see new homes built because that'll end the housing crisis. I want to end fuel poverty. Energy costs in this country are 50% more than they are in Germany and 30% more than they are in France. And our companies talk to us about being competitive, whilst we're having to battle with the, you know, real practical challenges on a day-to-day basis of high cost of energy in our nation. So I want to bring that down. The market's not going to do that. It has to come under public control. And that's why we've always said that the reality is there are core essential foundation industries that must be under the control of the people, operated for the people, by the people, whether that's communications, whether that's power and energy supply, whether that's water, whether that's gas or other utilities. They must be in the hands of working people, ordinary people, and under the democratic control of our elected politicians and our communities. And I'll just finish on this. We have to own our carbon footprint. We have to own it. And I agree with the points that have been made by others that you can't just export offshore your responsibilities for carbon emissions. We have to own that right through the supply chain, and we have to use, you know, environmental reparations to ensure that the developing world, the global south and elsewhere, picks up on the technology that we're developing here, and we have a free transfer. We have to have a free transfer of technology to the developing world to ensure that they don't make the same mistakes or use the same resources that we built our economy by exploiting. I mean, we moan about the Amazon rainforest being pulled down right now when we pulled our forests down in order to create the first industrial revolution. You know, and we have to make sure that they're not forced into being in a position to do that themselves in order to create and grow their own economies. We've got the technology to generate power without doing that. And we need to make sure that we're transferring that technology free of charge across the world. This is a global challenge, as others have said. It won't be resolved here in the UK, but the UK can play a major role in making sure that the world meets its challenges. And we've got a planet with which, you know, generation after generation after generation can survive and live a healthy and thought through life. And I'll leave it there, Mark.
Thanks. Thank you ever so much, Steve. There's a question, Steve, from Geraldine Murray, I think it is, if I've got that right, who is Secretary of Norwich Trades Council, President, sorry, of Norwich Trades Council. Should we be supporting the cleanest possible coke production through the new mine in Cumbria, or be importing less clean coke for production of the steel we'll need for, you know, building the new energy products?
Yeah, well, I wish that we weren't importing or digging up our own coke in order to be fueling our steel plants. The reality is we're not yet at a point where we can generate enough energy, enough power in the steel plants without using coke in order to manufacture steel. So if it's a choice between whether that's coke dug up from UK geography, or whether that's coke dug up from somewhere else and then transported on heavy oil ships halfway across the planet in order to get it to a plant here in the UK, then I'd back UK coal any day of the week. That's just the reality of it. But I think we have to get to a point whereby we can generate enough power, enough heat in those furnaces to manufacture the steel that we need, the new steel that we need, without using fossil fuels. And we're not quite there yet. There's a lot of talk about arc furnaces, but arc furnaces, you don't manufacture new steel with an arc furnace. You can recycle old steel, but you can't manufacture new steel. And for so many of our projects, we need new steel. And therefore, if we're going to manufacture new steel, we're going to have to use it anyway. So either we're going to import it from somewhere else with all the additional costs of that to the climate, as well as financially in a monetary sense, then we're going to have to manufacture it here. Again, these are good jobs. You know, I can see us transitioning that as the technology develops, but the technology is not there yet. Yeah, look, thanks. I think this has been a really interesting discussion. We should have more discussions like this. You know, I don't profess to be an expert on these issues. I come at it from a particular perspective. I'm here representing the members that pay their dues to my union for us to look after their interests and the interests of their families and their communities. We're not naive about this. You know, we've got kids, we've got grandchildren. We want to look after the planet for generations to come. And therefore, you know, the Green New Deal, how we transition our economy, is incredibly important. This debate is going to be centre stage. And it's a debate that's been happening for some time, but is gaining pace right now because of the urgency of it. So I don't take anything away from any of the comments that colleagues and comrades have made on the panel tonight. And I certainly don't underestimate the urgency of the discussion. I do believe, though, in the balanced energy policy. I mean, tonight's discussion was about energy. I agree with Martin on nuclear weapons, by the way. But, you know, the reality is, you know, tonight's discussion was about energy. And I firmly believe that we do need a balanced energy strategy. If we're going to generate the energy that we need in order not just to transition our economy away from fossil fuels, but also to make sure that we have a standard of living that is acceptable to all of us as we go on this journey. And we've got expectations in terms of a standard of living. And whilst, of course, you know, I want to see investment in public transport. I want to green and clean our towns and our cities. The irony, I wrote to Grant Shapps recently saying, look, of the £3 billion you've announced recently to put new green buses on our towns' streets, I want 400 million of that to pump prime 2,000 new buses being manufactured at plants in the UK to save 800 jobs. And I didn't even get a response from the bastard, you know. So let's not get confused about the sound bites that the Tories will come up with to the real plans that we need to put in place to make this happen. Nothing just happens in life, does it? You have to plan for it. You have to build for it. You have to build the consensus among the population, and you have to take people with you on the journey. And that's not easy. These are sensitive issues. You know, I can't go up to the North Sea and talk to our oil and gas workers without a plan about how we're going to transition away from the use of oil and gas, because this is their job. It's their job. It's their wages. It supports their families. It's enabled their kids to go into school. It's sent them on holiday. It's bought their house. It's their lives. It's their lives. And very often it was their parents' lives before them. And they want to see a decent future for their kids beyond them and their grandchildren. So how we transition and how we take people, working people in those industries, but also the wider communities. And I take the point that Pete makes, you know, I didn't get into the debate about Sizewell. I don't live in Sizewell. But the reality is I understand completely the arguments that the people, the community of Sizewell will be putting forward pro and against the development of Sizewell C. And there'll be our members constructing that, earning good money, in secure jobs, and there'll be our members running that programme once it's up and completed and generating power. And they'll be on good, skilled jobs. Earning good money, looking after their families, putting that money back into our communities, supporting the pub and the restaurant and the shop on the high street and everything that goes with it in the regional economy. And that's really important for your economy. You know, where else are these decent jobs coming from in that economy? And you can argue that everywhere. We can have a debate about where you should situate these plants. But, you know, for me, the debate is not about whether we have them or not. I think we need nuclear as part of the mix. Eventually, we'll get to a point where hydro, where wind, when solar, when energy storage capacity is built up to the point where, you know, we can look again at where we are. But if we're going to meet our climate objectives, if we're going to hold that to 1.5% and even lower, if we're going to make it by 2040, 2050 at the latest, and I think that's too late, to be honest with you. I share Anne's view, and we've got to act more urgently than this. If we're going to do that, we're not going to do it just relying on renewables. From an energy point of view, we're going to have to use nuclear. And that probably means small modular reactors rather than the big reactors that you're talking about at Sizewell C.
And that means manufacturing them here in the UK as well, which again is the cycle of good, well-paid union jobs, manufacturing the things that we need to use here in the UK.